Well, hello and welcome back to Motherhood Map, Navigating Alternative Pathways to Motherhood. This is episode 3, and today we are discussing adoption. Before we get started, I do want to just preface this by saying I'm not an expert when it comes to all the different routes of adoption. I can share based on my experience and my stories and my research, but there's many, many, many avenues even within the idea of fostering or adoption nationwide or international via state. There's so many different routes you can take. I'm going to give more of a 10,000-foot view to just give you some guidance and areas to think about and roadmaps to navigate within that realm. So let's dive right into episode 3, the motherhood map. And I'm going to share my screen here. And here we go. So let's explore adoption, finding a match. If my thing will go. Let's try this out. There we go. Bear with me. Our objective today is to educate on different types of adoption and how to start and navigate the process. We'll determine if adoption aligns with your personal values and circumstances. You'll weigh the different types of adoption, such as youth, toddler, or even infant adoption, and really understand the difference between an open and closed adoption. There's many misconceptions when it comes to an open adoption, and I'm here to help at least clarify that. Let's start by understanding adoption options. So obviously there is private adoption where you are going through a private agency, and it could be a for-profit institution or nonprofit. The one we chose was nonprofit, which I liked. And there's options domestic and international. In the year 2020, when we were looking into adoption, a lot of international adoptions were shut down because of COVID. And I just thought, why not look domestically? Why not look in our own region? There's children everywhere that need a safe home. What is the difference between an open and a closed adoption? We will get a little more into this, but an open adoption simply means there are open lines of communication between the birth family or birth mother and the intended parents or the adoptive parents. It just means you can connect with them directly, whether it's phone, email, texting, and you don't have to go through a third party to reach out to them or they to reach out to you. So it just kind of directly opens that line of communication versus a fully closed adoption. There is no identity shared and there's no communication. Any communication has to be done through the agency. And sometimes, like I said, the identification of the birth mother might not even be known, or the birth family might be unknown as well. It obviously ranges from situation to situation, but the closed just means there's closed lines of communication and everything has to go through the agency or a caseworker. And then there's a gray area in between, which is known as semi-closed, where maybe the identification of the birth family or birth mother is known, but the communication might still go through the agency. Maybe it's, hey, I do want to see pictures and updates, but please have them sent to the caseworker through the agency and then sent to me, or vice versa. Again, it's just that line of communication is open, but it's going through that third party. If you're interested, ours is an open adoption, which I did not think I was going to go with. When we first started looking into adoption, I thought, oh, gotta be closed. I had seen all those awful made-for-TV movies on like O Network, where you just get scared to think that this family is going to come after your child and kidnap it back, or who knows, crazy things, right? Not the case. And open is actually incredibly beneficial to the child, knowing where they came from and knowing their story, so that when they're an adult, they don't have to go back and say, why did this person not want me? Who am I? What is my story? What's my situation? What is my, there's another word I'm looking for and I can't think of it right now. It'll probably pop into my head later. Our son will always grow up knowing that he was not born in my tummy, but born in my heart. And we have fully open lines of communication with his birth family. In fact, just a few months ago, we happened to be in the area that they live in. We met up for dinner. They got to see him, take pictures. They brought him little gifts. They always send him gifts at Christmas time and around his birthday. And it's fantastic. I would not have it any other way. And that's just our situation and the route we chose. And it's what the mother chose too. So it is about what the birth mother chooses. Does she want to have that open line of communication directly with the family, or does she want to kind of keep a little bit detached and go through the agency? Semi-closed, we just actually covered that. So fostering to adopt, we mostly know what that is. It's through a state agency and you are being placed with a child. Could be any moment, honestly. Once you're in the fostering waiting pool, you could get a call at midnight. It could be in the afternoon, and you might get a child that shows up simply with nothing or just the clothes on their back and a backpack. Who knows? And you have to be ready for any child of any age at any time. And you have to have a home that is completely safe and proof for a fostering situation. Again, we chose not to go that route. I knew I couldn't be the person getting a phone call late at night to potentially have a child come into our home. I didn't know their story or what time of day it might be happening. So we chose not to foster to adopt. There's interstate adoption, which we actually did do. I had researched the different agencies located in the Pacific Northwest area. There was a couple in Washington, a couple in Oregon, and I didn't like the fact that they had shut down their infant adoption process during COVID versus the agency I found in Boise, Idaho, although it was about 5 hours away from us, they were still doing infant placements. They had figured out a way to change. They were doing all of their trainings online rather than in person. They were still able to, course correct in order to navigate a pandemic and still make sure children were being placed in good environments and homes. And that really spoke to me as I was searching for an agency. There's obviously legal considerations and timelines. Again, this is speaking from my experience, but once our child was placed in our hands, because of the interstate process, we had to stay in Idaho for about 2 weeks until the birth mother had gone in front of a judge to certify that she was terminating her parental rights. Then we were in the clear to cross the state line, come over home to Washington State. And then beyond that, we still had to make certain benchmarks with our caseworker and our home studies. There was a 3-month home study and then a 6-month home study, and she had to write a formal approval for our home and this placement of the child. So during that limbo period, yes, he was in our care, but it was as if we were fostering him and he was legally a ward of our agency with their license. Once she wrote her letter of recommendation stating that this was a good placement, that went to the agency. We got connected with a lawyer at that part, and then we were able to schedule a time to show up in front of a judge and be legally certified as our son Declan's parents, as if he had been born out of my womb in the hospital. Now, please keep in mind, each state has different laws and regulations regarding adoption and fostering. Please see your state's Health and Human Services Department for more clarification. And again, I am not a legal expert. I'm not an attorney, so please seek legal counsel if you want more information. Now, let's also, oh yeah, I just mentioned that. I'm not a legal expert. So, financial and emotional preparedness. The costs can vary, again, from state to state, situation to situation, but I can share with you my experience and roughly how much it cost for us. Now, costs associated with adoption and an agency, all in all, when everything was said and done, from the training programs to the background checks, all the fees, the match fees, the hospital bills, we had to take care of the hospital bills for our birth mother. Again, as if I had delivered in the hospital. And so all those bills were in our name. The name was obviously redacted, so I could send those off for reimbursement with our healthcare system. All of that to say, we roughly spent about $60,000 on just the adoption process. But that also includes expenses, our stay in an Airbnb in Idaho for 2 weeks, all the fees for home studies, everything. And again, that was just our situation. Now, there are grants and need-based funding, so look into those options. I'm going to share some here in a moment. One is called the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. They do nationwide grants and needs-based programs for people that are looking into adoption. Look at adoptioncouncil.org for even more resources and grants that you can apply for to see if you're eligible to get some assistance. And there's numerous others based on your location, your financial needs, and even other demographic factors. Emotional readiness for adoption. My biggest tip was compartmentalizing it. I couldn't be on an emotional roller coaster every single time our profile book was shown to a prospective birth mother, especially when she didn't choose us time after time after time. I just had to put it in a little box, put it in a neat little bow, and tuck it away. And I didn't set up a nursery or a crib or anything because I knew that would kill and eat up my heart to walk by that every single day for a year, potentially 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Who knows? That's one of my biggest tips. Navigating the relationship with the birth parents and the families. Obviously, every situation is going to be unique. It depends on if it's an open or a closed adoption, like we talked about, and really just having those parameters set up from the get-go. We knew from the get-go that this family wanted to stay in communication. And we thought from the beginning that the birth mother would want more involvement in our child's life and would want to see more updates on him. And in fact, it's actually turned out to be the grandparents that have wanted more interaction with him, which is fine. I think at a certain age, she will want to reach out. And when she's ready, we will be here. And until that time, I'm just continuing to love my child and share his life with his birth family as much as they are receptive to it. Obviously, we talked about some of the common fears and misconceptions regarding adoption and placement. There are numerous ways to adopt, whether it's an infant placement program, toddler, teen, or youth. There's so many kids out there that need a good home. You can look into government placed situations as well, where it's children that are wards of the state, whether it's fostering or potentially in another system like a orphan home. There we go. Couldn't think of that word. And there are different routes you can navigate even within that. I'm not very well versed in the government side of things, so I can't speak to that. However, you can just start researching and reaching out to agencies within your state because again, it's going to vary from state to state. Let's talk about some of the next steps. Where do you even start? That's how I felt. Where do I start? First, I just started Googling agencies in my state, in my region. Don't be afraid to expand your search outside of your city or your state. Looking for licensed adoption agencies or fostering agencies in your region. Like I said, I found mine in a neighboring state. Ask agencies if they place you with a home case study worker or if you need to find one on your own. Ours actually placed us with a caseworker that's located in Washington, so that way she was licensed both here and in Idaho to make sure everything was going back and forth as it should. Ask about their training requirements. Do they require an in-person training? Can it be done via Zoom? What does it look like to get actually into the adoption waiting pool? Ask about the size of their adoption parent waiting pool. Some agencies, especially nationwide ones, will have thousands of parents at any given moment in their waiting pool. I personally liked the fact that our agency kept it a little bit smaller. I don't know the exact number because it's always changing, right? As people are getting synopses and getting matched with potential birth mothers. But I would say it was always under about 50 people or 50 prospective families. That to me just said that they were really honed in on who their ideal family was to put into their waiting pool and also obviously kept the time waiting a little bit lower. All that to say, we are still in the adoption waiting pool for number 2, hoping for another child. And we've been in the pool for about a year and a half now, coming up on 2 years. So I don't know what the future holds for us and our family, but we are back in the infant waiting pool as of right now. Also look for an attorney that specializes in family law to help with legal finalization of your adoption. That is a little bit later down the road once you're placed and matched with a birth mother. However, it's a good idea to have one in your back pocket. No, I want to use this particular lawyer. They really know the ins and outs of adoption. Our lawyer was actually located about 2 hours away up in Spokane, but he was very well versed in Washington state adoption laws. And we did all of our hearings via Zoom. Even meeting in front of the judge was via Zoom. I don't know if that's the case nowadays because this was during the height of COVID. Things may have changed. Start a savings account now. Even if it's only $100 a month, start putting a little bit of money every day or every month into a budget to help you cover unexpected costs. They will happen. Who knows? Maybe it's you need to go and get your background check done again. Maybe something happened with your fingerprint. There's another cha-ching. Maybe you need to go and buy a new crib because now you've gotten matched. More money. Obviously, different things will pop up, believe me. Now, get out your journal and your reflection guide because we are going to ponder some questions. Would I be emotionally ready at any moment to get a foster call for an infant, youth, or teenager? And it's okay if you say no. Years ago, when I used to teach elementary school, I double interviewed for either a fifth grade position or a kindergarten position. And as I was interviewing, I thought, please, 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 please offer me the fifth grade job, not the kindergarten position, because I am not that personality type. I love kids, clearly. I ended up teaching fifth grade, third grade, second grade, but thinking about kindergartners. And when I would walk by the teacher that actually got the job for the kindergarten position, I was offered the fifth grade. Hearing her go, okay, boys and girls, it is time for circle time and sing songs. It was like nails on a chalkboard to me. And that's okay. I just wasn't the right fit for that particular situation. And that's the same here with fostering. Be honest with yourself. Would you be okay with getting a call at a moment's notice and having to upend your lives? Or even the lives of the children you do have at home. Maybe you have children at home and you're wanting to add to your family, thinking about the ramifications and the implications on the rest of your family dynamic. Would I be equipped to handle the waiting time and the rejections of birth parents that didn't choose our family to parent their child? Again, I gave my little biggest tip on that one as well, but you've got to be able to sit with that question and really think about it. How do I feel about open, closed, or semi-closed adoption plans? Now that you know the difference, what do you think? Would you want open lines of communication or no lines of communication only through an agency or potentially not even knowing the identification of your birth family or birth mother? What am I looking for in an agency? And am I wanting something that's logistically close by, something within a couple hours drive so that if a birth mother does go into labor, I can be there for the birth really quickly? Do I want one that's easy to connect with and quick to answer my calls or my texts or my emails? Those are all really big questions to ask yourself. How do I feel about infant adoption versus a child, youth, or even a teen? There's a movie a few years ago about like instant family. I think it was with Mark Wahlberg, and they got three teenagers all at once. And I'm sure it was a harrowing experience. It's based on a true story. But however, that family instantly became a family, hence the name of the movie, and it changed the trajectory of their lives for good. Next episode, we are going to talk about assisted reproductive technologies and the more invasive routes when it comes to trying to start or conceive your family. I'll see you there.